Trump will respond to Starmer, not least his ideas and plans about defence spending. And when it comes to net zero, we know the what, don't we? But what about the how? Today, we've got more details on that. And ladies and gents, let me tell you, it does not look pretty. It means significant changes to our lives. And if carrots don't work to get us there, the stick will be out. Let's discuss that. Also, as well, we've spoken often and looked at a situation that might be occurring in your city as well. These kind of tent cities that are emerging, packed full of homeless people and migrants. What do we do with them all? One in Manchester, just now being closed down today. But I can tell you, the people popped up a few hours later somewhere else. So what is then the lasting answer to all of that? Well, we've got lots to get through tonight. Keeping me company, I've got Suzanne Evans and Paul Richards. But before we get stuck in, let's cross live and give you your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines from the GB newsroom. Donald Trump has confirmed President Zelensky will visit him on Friday to sign a very big agreement. The US president had held his first meeting at the White House since his inauguration last month, joined by his billionaire advisor Elon Musk. Attention quickly turned to the minerals deal with Ukraine.
President Zelensky is going to be coming on Friday. That's now confirmed, and we're going to be signing an agreement, which will be a very big agreement. And I want to thank Howard and Scott for the job you guys did in putting it together. Really did an amazing job. And that'll be on rare earth and other things.
He went on to say the United States would not be making security guarantees for Ukraine in its deal to end the war with Russia, but that Europe would. Meanwhile, Downing Street has confirmed that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will meet with Sir Keir Starmer and other European leaders in London on Sunday. It is thought that Mr. Zelensky is planning to make the trip to discuss defence.
President Zelensky is going to be coming on Friday. That's now confirmed, and we're going to be signing an agreement, which will be a very big agreement.
In other news, Sir Keir Starmer has refused to say if the deal to give away the Chagos Islands to Mauritius would be funded from the increase in defence spending. The Prime Minister told the Commons that the increase to 2.5% of GDP is for our capability on defence and security in Europe, and described the deal being negotiated with Mauritius as extremely important for our security. Tory MP Kieran Mullen asked Sir Keir during Prime Minister's questions to give an unequivocal answer on where the money would come from, but the Prime Minister declined to say whether money for the deal with the islands would come out of the increase in defence spending. In other news, 7 companies named and shamed in the Grenfell inquiry are set to be investigated and face being placed on a blacklist. Following the deaths of 72 people in the 2017 Grenfell Tower fire, Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner has given the government's response to the inquiry, published in September after 7 years.
We've announced today that we'll be investigating those 7 companies for professional misconduct under the new Procurement Act, which came into force last week. So we'll be taking that forward. We've said that the way those companies reacted was absolutely disgraceful, what they did, and I outlined that in the chamber today. Reading the report from Sir Martin was absolutely devastating to see, and the lack of remorse by some of these companies is disgraceful, and I outlined that again today in my response to the report's findings.
And the Vatican has said Pope Francis's condition has improved slightly and his mild kidney problems have been resolved. The Vatican also says that the Pope's CT scan has shown a normal evolution of the pulmonary inflammation. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Michelle.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that. I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, Suzanne Evans, the political consultant, and Paul Richards, the former Labour Special Advisor. Good evening to both of you. You're very welcome tonight. Hello. As are each and every single one of you at home. What's on your mind this evening, ladies and gents? There is a lot that we need to discuss. You join the conversation all the usual ways. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. Go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay. Or, of course, you can tweet or you can X me. But look, pretty much I imagine as we speak, Keir Starmer will be on an aeroplane going over to Washington to meet Donald Trump. I'd love to, wouldn't you just love to be a fly on the wall to see what he's actually really thinking? I bet it's absolutely fascinating what must go through the minds of these leaders when they're en route to go and meet the Donald. I mean, I don't know what they do. Do you think they do limbering up of their fingers and their hands to prepare themselves for the vice-like grip that is about to come their way? Do you think they need to do any practicing of arm wrestling or what? It's all, it's all a very peculiar spectacle, isn't it, when they meet? But anyway, of course, we've seen lots of pandering, some might suggest, to Donald Trump. When it comes to things like foreign aid, there's been calls now to try and get a vote put through Parliament when it comes to slashing foreign aid. I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. Listen to Angela Rayner. She very much supportive of Keir Starmer's decision yesterday.
No one could have predicted the situation we are in Europe at the moment, and of course it was absolutely right that the Prime Minister said that we had to increase defence spending, because the number one responsibility of any government is to keep people safe. It is devastating that we've had to reduce the overseas aid budget.
Are you someone that's in support of what Labour did yesterday?
I am, and I've been arguing for a while now we need to increase defence spending for all the reasons the Prime Minister set out. And we've also said we're not going to put people's taxes up. So you have to then ask, where's the money going to come from? And it takes tough decisions like this, that's where it's going to come from. And it's not ideal and it's not forever, but for now we do need to put more money into defence.
But surely, though, I mean, this whole kind of argument, and we saw it pan out a little bit as well in PMQs, there's still this worry from people, hold on a second, you're going to cut aid, you're apparently going to boost defence, but surely you're not going to use some of that money to pay Mauritius to take our land off us.
Well, that's a separate deal, and I think, as I have said before, that deal does need looking at again.
No, but what we're saying is people are saying the money, surely this money, surely nobody would sit there.
It needs to go into defence, absolutely.
Yeah.
And by defence, we mean frontline soldiers, you know, tanks and the things that will defend us in Europe against the Russians.
Do you think there'd be any justification for some of that cash getting rerouted to literally pay people to take our own land off us?
Personally, no.
Good. Sensibleness. There you go. We've got some good common sense at the start of the programme. That's what we like, don't we, ladies and gents? Suzanne, where are you?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got to increase defence spending. You know, the geopolitics around the world are quite terrifying. We've got Russia, we've got China, we've got Iran, we've got homegrown terrorism, Islamist terrorism from overseas. Of course, it's got to be increased, and I've been arguing that it should be for quite a long time. But you're absolutely right to raise the Chagos issue. Why hasn't Keir Starmer come straight out of the traps and said, the money is not going to be going on that? The other thing, of course, is the defence budget's always been a bit of a fudge. There are things spent on defence that perhaps you wouldn't think of, like, for instance, forces pensions. That's part of the 2.5% of GDP spending. So we all need to, I think, to agree that this has got to be spent on defence and not some other behind-the-scenes fudge to pay for something else. As far as decreasing the foreign aid budget is concerned, yes, we all know it's spent on lunacy sometimes, ridiculous projects, rather than that frontline emergency aid that most of us, I think, absolutely agree with and think should be there. The money should be there for that. But it's quite hypocritical, is it not, of Labour now to be saying that they're OK with reducing the foreign aid budget when for the whole of the Tory government and the coalition government with the Lib Dems before that, they were attacking them every time this was even mentioned.
But then what they would say back to that is, well, times have changed now. The landscape has changed.
Well, they certainly have, yeah, and so good on them for doing a volte-face. That's absolutely fine. I've got no quibble with it, personally.
Yeah, I've not really got this kind of pushback on that. I've seen it all unfolding. You've got people coming at Keir Starmer with tweets from God knows how long ago, David Lammy, the same. And I think to myself, there's no... I get their sentiment. They're trying to say, oh, Labour, you're flip-flopping around. But there's no kind of it's not noble to sit there and not be able to change your mind.
Well, when the facts change, you have to change your mind, don't they? And the biggest fact is we've been at a war now for 3 years, all the threats around the world we've described, and also, you know, Trump withdrawing from Europe and some of the changing geopolitics around that just means Labour has to step up. And Labour has in the past done this, you know, certainly in the coalition government in the World War II, for example. You know, Attlee was the Deputy Prime Minister. So we are strong on defence when we need to be. And this is just another example. It's only 2.5% as well. You sort of think of in terms of the amount of money we do spend as a state. It's not a lot, but it's the right aspiration in a very dangerous world.
In a minute, I'm going to show you this video that was put out on Truth Social this morning, and then we're going to debate that after the break. But before I get to that, how do you think, then, Keir Starmer is going to be received by Donald Trump?
I'm really hoping there's not going to be some sort of stunt or some attempt to belittle him and, you know, call him by the wrong name or something. I think we need to be a bit grown up about this. It's an important visit.
Why do you think he'd do that?
Well,
I
because
thought he previously said he thought he was all right, he was a good man or whatever.
Well, that's what I hope, that their good relationship is continued in that way. But Trump does sometimes do. He mispronounced Macron's name all the way through his press conference and did that weird handshake and then didn't like being corrected by him, did he? So he might just set a little trap like that. Who knows? I hope, though, the grown-ups are in the room.
His handshake wasn't as weird with Macron this time as what it was. Was it? I think 2017 was that? Was it about then? I think it was about 29, 27 seconds or something like that. It's a very strange thing to do.
Strange.
I think it's a bit of a man thing. I don't think women would kind of behave like that. But anyway,
I think it's a political thing. It's particularly when you've got two alpha males in the room. And let's face it, if you're going to be running your country, you're probably an alpha male if you're a and this whole thing about shaking hands, it's who can hold on to the hand longest. You also notice it when they usher them into a door. You very often find who shoves who in through the door. Right. Political body language is very fascinating.
Strange. It really is, isn't it? And I'll tell you what else is fascinating. I want to play you a video, and we're going to debate this properly after the break. But it popped up on Truth Social, which is essentially Donald Trump's social networking site, and it is something that it really has sparked a response today. If you haven't seen this, take a seat, get ready. In fact, actually, take a seat and get ready because we're going to play it after the break. Don't go anywhere.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Apparently in 1991, I took out an insurance on my computer, which I have no recollection of at all. But recently, I've had a foreign voice ring me and say, unless I pay the £1,000 immediately, they'll take it out of my bank account.
They wouldn't have access to your bank account.
No, they have no access to my bank account. And what you should do, to begin with, you feel frightened. And you think, my God, £1,000 coming up, what do I do? And then Neil, my partner, said, just ignore it. And that's what you've got to do. But they are persistent.
So threatening as well.
And we changed we changed the number and everything. And still, they managed to get through to you. And we told the bank not to accept any £1,000 checks, something like that. But it is awful. But I say to your viewers and listeners, please, please ignore these phone calls.
Yes.
Even if at the end of the day it's true and they do come and collect £1,000 legally, don't do anything about it. Just ignore it.
Yeah. I think there's an organisation you can phone which is anti-scammer.
Is there?
They can do a lot of this stuff for you. I'm no help to you because I don't know what it is.
Well, I might look into that because it is worrying, you know, to begin with, and then they are so persistent.
Yeah.
That is the thing.
My mum had a similar thing the other day, and this is a good tip to remember. And her bank rang her up and said it was her bank, and they needed to get into her account immediately because someone had hacked her account and they were taking her money out. So it's automatically the panic.
Yeah.
You're losing money. And they said, just share the one-time password that's about to come to your phone. And at that point, she went, no, you should never share your one-time password.
No.
Anybody asks you to do that, it's a scam.
No,
phone
exactly.
back. So just a good one to remember.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry, Dewbs & Co. with you till 7 o'clock. Suzanne Evans and Paul Richards remain alongside me. Lots of you, I mean, we spoke about this defence thing situation last night, didn't we? I really don't think I found anybody, either last night or again tonight, that's against slashing foreign aid and actually putting it forward for the defence of this country. I asked yesterday, I'll ask again, if you do actually think it's the wrong decision, get in touch and tell me, because I'm fascinated to hear about it. The consensus seems to be that we all want to be able to help out when, you know, people really are struggling in those times of need. But currently, the way that foreign aid works is not really getting the vote from anybody. But anyway, look, I'll tell you that something that really did generate reaction today. Did you see this? Have you seen this? This was a video that was put out, an AI video, and it was put out on Truth Social, Donald Trump's network. Watch this.
Donald's coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see. No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump Gaza is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new light. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza, #1. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new light. Feast and dance, the deal is done.
Right, if you're not watching this, you're listening on the radio, let me just very quickly summarise what you just saw there. It's very strange, very offensive to some people, a video basically depicting what Gaza could potentially look like under Donald Trump. You've got people emerging from the tunnels. You've got it looking like what he said it would, like a Riviera. You've got Elon Musk in there, Netanyahu in there. What's your reaction to this, Suzanne?
So clearly Donald Trump hasn't produced this video. It's come from, we don't quite know where it's come from. But the fact is he has reposted it on his social media network. So this is where the controversy has come in here. What's my reaction to it? I think his retweeting it is completely offensive, really, notwithstanding the fact he clearly has this vision for Gaza. And I would hope that we all had a vision for Gaza that was rather more beautiful, and that people can emerge from those tunnels into the light, into the sunshine, into a beautiful environment. I'm sure we would all want that. I think for him to repost it at this particular moment in time, particularly as it features himself, you know, this golden statue, this kind of like godlike golden statue of himself. I mean, I know the man's got an ego. Of course the man's got an ego, but how big an ego do you have to repost something like that?
Possibly even a little bit narcissistic, one might say.
Well, certainly I think
you could go that far, perhaps. I mean,
pushing that makes him look very narcissistic. Yes, indeed. So I think, although we all hope Gaza will have a bright new future, I think for him to retweet this at this time is completely
Don't you think it's fascinating, though? It's on a channel called Truth. And yet it's the opposite of truth. It's an AI-generated image. Now, will there be people in the world who see that and believe it's true in some way? You know, this blurring of the line that AI gives us now between images that we see that we don't know whether they're real or not. People can capture our faces off television and put words in our mouths. You can create all kinds of images from nothing which are, you know, horrible images, lovely images, but they're not real.
I think there's a real issue to be answered there, Paul. I agree with you. You know, the fact that you can stick somebody else's face on their body. And, of course, there's also been controversy over this in the pornography field as well, where you've had famous people's images pushed onto other people's bodies. You know, personally, I think myself quite a liberal person, but I think you should.
But what about movies? You know, movies with Elvis and Marilyn Monroe acting out films. You know, the long dead people now suddenly come back on our screens. I mean, you know, are Led Zeppelin going to be able to play concerts now in their 20s, and we go and see those? I mean, it's just where does this end? You know, where is reality and where is fake?
Let me bring this back to this particular Trump video, and let me just play a bit of devil's advocate. we don't know the origins of this video. I've just made that clear. But, of course, I am saying that Donald Trump did retweet this. I don't think he's made any further comment beyond that point. And as I've said, so many people, understandably, are deeply offended by this. So many people, including predominantly children and women, have lost their life in Palestine. The whole thing is horrific. So to then so quickly as well be presenting images like this, it is offensive to so many. But what it also will be to so many, Paul, is their absolute worst nightmare. So if you think of many kind of players in the Middle East, the thought of having that as a reality on their doorsteps, shrines to Donald Trump, American-run Rivieras, Netanyahu, alcohol. I don't know if people even realise as well, there was belly dancing... I don't really know what they were. They were like men with beards and belly dancing. So what I'm saying to you is this depiction would be the worst nightmare for many people in the Middle East. There is a devil's advocate way of perhaps looking at this, which is, has the intention of this video been to perhaps try and propel people in the Middle East to be so repulsed, offended and upset by that they will do everything possible to stop that happening and somehow then try and create peaceful solutions and futures where they previously haven't been able to?
Well, I mean, Suzanne said we don't know who's made this, and therefore it's difficult to work out quite what the motives behind it are. But you're absolutely right. It's incredibly incendiary to an awful lot of opinion in the Middle East, and certainly some of those depictions people would consider to be religious or, you know, offensive in that way. The problem with the Gaza-Trump Riviera plan is that there are 2 million Palestinians who don't particularly want to move house, and the whole plan rests on the forced evacuation of about 2 million people, which we know from history then generates more problems down the line. So you're not going to get a load of hotels that aren't just getting on with it. You'll create a displaced population who want to come home, and that's the problem down the line. So the whole solution of just clearing the decks and putting in hotels is obviously nonsense.
But this is the point that I'm, in a devil's advocate way, trying to make, because...
You think it's done on purpose to stop it from happening?
I don't... Well, you see, in this strange new world that we now live in, I don't know. What I'm trying to explore is... Because it's indisputable that it's offensive to many.
Sure.
That is indisputable.
And funny to others, everything. You know, it's just bizarre.
So that is, that is indisputable. But what I'm trying to pose as the devil's advocate question is... Could there ever be a scenario whereby this is being created and prepared to try and galvanise people within the Middle East to try and do everything possible within their power to stop this, i.e. to try and create an alternate reality, a more peaceful reality, away from American clutches, if you like?
I don't know. We don't know the motivation of who made this. I take your point. Personally, I don't think that's right. I think you've just got that really horrible image at the beginning of a mother and her children captured in a tunnel in Gaza. That is such a horrific image. I can't imagine that anybody who made this would be in favour of that or want to keep that situation going.
But that has been people's reality, though, hasn't it?
It has, and that's why, as I said, I find this... I think he was completely wrong to basically publicise this, because it is people's reality. And if you've got somebody who's been displaced from their home, whether you support Israel, whether you support Palestine, both or neither, the fact is you've got so many people displaced, their homes have been razed to the ground, their entire lives have been shattered. And then to say, hey, but it doesn't matter, we're going to replace it with Trump and Netanyahu on a sunbed and casinos and gambling and bars and pubs. That's so wrong.
Well, look, let's see what happens next, because like I said, unless I've missed it, he doesn't actually seem to have commented on it, Donald Trump. So let's see what happens. But I'll tell you who has been commenting today, Elon Musk, because Donald Trump had his first cabinet of his second time. It's just about finished, probably a half an hour or so ago. It started off with a prayer. I found that quite interesting, actually. What did you make to that? But Elon Musk, he was first up. Take a listen to one of the things he had to say.
The overall goal here with the Doge team is to help address the enormous deficit. We simply cannot sustain, as a country, $2 trillion deficits.
I mean, what he was going on about as well, he was saying that the interest payments that are actually made on the debts of these countries are out of control and will break these countries if they are not tackled. And when I was listening to that, I was thinking, I would love somebody in this country to be saying those kind of things. We lack it, do we not?
Well, the prayer point is interesting. Of course, the British Parliament starts with prayers every single time. So it is. We do have that in our country too. I don't think cabinet meetings necessarily start with the prayer.
Do you think they should?
Well, why not? You know, if Parliament does, why not government? On the interest point, I mean, I don't think he's the right person to be running a major government institution. I don't think he's quite got a grasp of it. I think it's...
Who? Elon Musk?
Elon Musk, yeah.
You don't think one of the smartest minds
Is he the
in
smartest?
the world
Is he the smartest?
should be tasked with actually
I don't think he's
creating
all that smart. He
efficiencies?
says things, particularly about this country, that suggest he doesn't really know much about us. And he says things about the UK Constitution involving the king and so on.
What's that got to do with the price of fish? Because he's talking about...
He doesn't know. He doesn't get it.
But he's been placed into the US.
And he's messing it up. I mean, he put that email address out there that it's going to take millions and millions of hours to reply to all these emails that he's generated. He's getting it horribly wrong. He's sacked all these people looking after the nuclear bunkers and the park rangers. He's sacking people all over the place who are doing quite a useful job. That's going to come back and bite them. He's making a mess of this.
I totally disagree, and I think there are so many people in this country that see their money, their hard-earned money. Let's not forget, even people on minimum wage in this country have to pay tax, and their taxes are going into all manner of issues. I mean, look at David Lammy's restaurant bill this week. People are furious about that kind of spending and that kind of thing.
A lot of that's diplomacy, though. That wasn't his bill, was it? These are our diplomats abroad doing our bidding.
I'll just use that as one example. You know, you open the Taxpayers Alliance website, for instance, you can find hundreds and hundreds of examples of wasted taxpayers' money.
Of course,
people want an Elon Musk here, and frankly, I'd volunteer for the job. Give me. I'd love to get into spending in government, because I'm sure any one of our viewers here could look at spending in central government.
Would you sack all the nuclear technicians in the first week, or would you look at it a bit more closely? That's what I'm. And also look at the Teslas. Now people are not buying Teslas anymore, so his own businesses is tanking because of his idiocies.
But it is. But you know, the fact is,
isn't it?
Elon Musk, love him or loathe him, the fact is he has built a massive company. It's not just Tesla. It's his Starlink, his space exploration. He's now moving into medical tech. The guy is a genius.
No,
you can't deny that, Paul. He is a genius.
He's not a genius.
He is absolutely the man, I think, to go through all spending in America. And like I say, I wish we had somebody like him here.
Do you think he'll last? I think he's going to fall out with Trump quite quick. I mean, Trump's probably going to be a bit annoyed. He's getting more publicity than the president, and probably sack him before long. Well, I suspect that's where that's heading. Exactly.
Yeah, but let's not forget that this Doge unit, it's got an expiry date on it, which is one of the things that I like most about it. It's not supposed to be this ongoing piece of work. It's supposed to be short, sharp, effective. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Will he make mistakes?
Staffed by teenagers.
Will he make mistakes? Of course he would make mistakes. What are you on about teenagers for? You guys want teenagers to be able to vote, so you can't think teenagers are that bad, so I don't know what you're on about. Anyway, look, after the break, let's talk about net zero, because often we talk about the what when it comes to net zero, but what about the how? We've got an eye-watering report today that will really show you ways that your lifestyle will have to change, and if you don't adhere to it, the carrots don't work, the sticks will be out. Let's look at that in 2.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Looking ahead to tomorrow, and there's some fairly wet weather affecting some parts of more southern Europe. We have a band of rain sweeping in, affecting Madeira, also Portugal and western parts of Spain. Some stronger winds here as well. A little bit drier across more central parts, some decent sunshine on offer here, but still more unsettled weather affecting eastern parts of the Med towards Greece, towards Cyprus. There's some heavy rain around, but things are looking drier, not necessarily sunny, into the weekend. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. On the M5 in Somerset, the motorway remains closed in both directions from junction 24 to 25, just north of Taunton, at the scene of a serious accident involving a lorry. South London, Peckham High Street is partly blocked at Clayton Road, where emergency services are dealing with an incident. And it's still really slow on the Surrey stretch of the M25 anti-clockwise towards junction 10 at the A3. A car broke down earlier on, but not being helped by the ongoing roadworks on that stretch. M69, that's queuing as you head up towards the M1 towards Leicester after a lorry caught fire earlier on the M1. In Northamptonshire, the A45 is closed on the Thorpe bypass midway between Daventry and Northampton for a police investigation off the M1. And on the M1 in West Yorkshire, the inside lanes blocked southbound at junction 45, the A63 east of Leeds following a collision. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dewbs & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. We're with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, Suzanne Evans, a political consultant, and Paul Richards, the former Labour Special Advisor. Not a lot of you are liking that video when it comes to Gaza at all. I can tell you that for free. Honestly, such a strange thing. You know, you go to bed on the night, and when you wake up, you just never know quite, do you, what it is that you're gonna have woken up to, what it is that Trump and Elon Musk have actually done themselves. But anyway, look. Net zero. When I say those two words, what impact does it have on you? Do you stand there and cheer and go, yes, yes, do it faster, do more, or do you sit there, roll your eyes and go, goodness gracious me, what on earth has got into the minds of those that rule us? Well, we often talk about what it is, and there's often a lot of debate about how we actually get there. Well, now, this report has come out, which is basically looking at some of the things that will need to have happened in order for us to achieve our goals. Suzanne, they're quite eye-watering when it comes to the lifestyle changes that we will have to follow. Some of them we've already known about, some of them are toyed with, and some of them go much further. What are your thoughts on some of these things?
So this is the Climate Change Committee, which is the independent advisor to government on net zero and the government's net zero goals. And the lifestyle changes they want us to make are shocking. They're talking about taxing your family holiday if you take a flight to try and dissuade people from going on flights. They want to ban petrol and diesel-powered lawnmowers. They want to ban gas hobs and cookers, end the sale of new gas boilers. We probably knew about that one already. But there's some really weird ones. They want a near 30% drop in the numbers of cattle and sheep in the UK by 2040 so that we can grow more trees. So they're talking about cutting ready meal meat by about 15% and making supermarkets, restaurants, hospitals and schools serve vegan alternatives. They want to tax meat imports and they want 80% of homes to have heat pumps by 2040. So these are massive things that will have a huge impact on our lifestyle. And when I saw it this morning, I just said, well, they can sod off, frankly, because I just think it's so extreme. But finally, at last, we are realising the personal cost of net zero. So I think that's got to be a good thing, because it's very often talked about as this kind of vague construct that's supposed to be good for the environment and good for the climate. But here we are, when push comes to shove, these are the changes we're going to have to make. We're going to have to stop using our cars, we're going to have to stop taking flights, we're going to have to eat less meat, and we're not going to be able to heat our homes properly. This is going to make us all poorer and colder.
I, for one, do not want to be eating bread and water and driving along on an electric lawnmower, high-fiving myself, saying that we finally achieved net zero.
No. Well, I'm not sure that's quite what the committee was suggesting. And let's just unpick it. First of all, it's advisory, so this is not what the government is necessarily going to do. I mean, it's just a committee saying, here's some ideas. Two, a lot of these ideas are perfectly plausible. People are moving away from gas hobs and going to electric or whatever else, and we are buying more electric cars, not Mr Musk's necessarily, but people are buying electric cars. But who's still got a petrol lawnmower? I don't know anyone who's got one of them.
You don't live in the countryside. You know, I'm sorry.
I live
in the Shropshire countryside. Anyone that says you can't have a petrol lawnmower, I'm sorry. You try mowing a massive lawn with a
flights are already
electric
taxed.
Flymo or something.
You know, I think there's a number of things here that are perfectly sensible. Look how much change we've had in the last 10, 15 years. You know, the world is changing, and some of these things are just the way things are going. It's perfectly all right. I mean, if you're resisting it, I wonder it's because you think that maybe climate change isn't really a problem, but it is.
The fact is, I happen to, at the moment, be all electric. I can tell you my bills are astronomical, and this is what the committee is saying. It's saying we've got to move away from oil and gas and go electric. But electric is a lot more expensive. So I'm thinking, why is this committee pushing this line? So I had a look at who makes up this committee. It's really interesting. There are a bunch of academics who I suspect are all really very wealthy. The kind of people for whom the phrase ivory tower was invented, in my opinion.
Academics are not wealthy in this country. We underpay our academics.
Well, these ones aren't just
paid.
academics. They've got consultancy jobs, and some of them have worked in the past for oil companies, for energy companies, for big finance companies. These are not poor people. These are not the kind of people who struggle. And they're the kind of people who say, oh, yeah, I don't mind spending 40 grand on a heat pump. I can afford it. And if the heat pumps put my electricity bills up, oh, well, it doesn't matter. I'm supporting the planet. They clearly don't have, as I say, live in the countryside. They're clearly city dwellers. They clearly don't cook, because talking about induction hobs, I mean, I'm sorry, the cost of buying pans for an induction hob alone is astronomical, let alone buying the thing. And as most chefs will tell you, gas is the only way if you really want to cook properly. So I don't trust these people.
This is an argument we have in our household quite a lot, I have to say. But I take your point. But I think,
come from a bubble.
Yeah.
Let me show you a clip that caught my eye, because at the end of the day, like I always say, if this is what you're into, if you're into net zero and you're terrified about climate change, then go and fill your boots, make all the changes in the world that helps move us forward millimetre by millimetre. I don't deny any of that. But what about people that are not so on board, don't feel that that is the biggest priority, and don't buy perhaps some of the scare tactics? What will happen to them then if they don't want to move in the direction of travel suggested? This caught my eye. Just take a watch of this.
We are, broadly speaking, agreed that we need to get on track towards a net zero, climate safe and nature positive future, but we know this will not be easy. And we're going to need to change behaviours of both individuals, but also the way that our industries and corporations and also our governments work and practice. We're going to need to do this through a mixture of carrots and hopefully perhaps not so many sticks, and some kind of mix. And there's a very active and live debate as to how we go about this. But we're likely to see an increasing move towards a more stick-like interventions into the future as things work.
Oh, are you? You're more likely to move towards a stick-based intervention. That's Chris Stark speaking at the World Economic Forum there, head of UK's mission for clean power. My issue with all of this, Paul, if every single person in the world, every country in the world was sitting there absolutely terrified about climate change, desperate for net zero, and everybody was moving together in unison in the same direction of the same timeframes, that's one thing. What you've actually got is we, a country, who are responsible for something like 1% of global emissions, making ourselves poorer, impacting our lives. Now hearing things like basically we're going to be beaten by sticks, essentially, to get us to change our behaviour against our will, whilst you've got the big emitters globally doing whatever they want, quite frankly, pushing back their net zero targets, building coal-fired fuel stations, and so on and so forth. I feel like we are just going to impoverish ourselves, damage livelihoods, lifestyles, economies. For what?
Well, I disagree fundamentally with that. And I'll tell you why. I think we can take global leadership on this. I think we can be patriotic about this. I think we can hang on.
When I'm sitting riding my lawnmower in my freezing cold eating my bread, at least I can high-five myself and say we're a global leader.
I think there'll be opportunities here for apprenticeships, for new businesses, for investment across the whole of the UK, not just in the southeast. And we can actually take a global lead. We can manufacture some of this stuff here and revive manufacturing jobs, including clean steel and so on.
We don't have British steel anymore because we're desperate to tick these boxes.
And if we go down this route, we can actually show global leadership and be an example, good example to other people. You need to be more ambitious.
I'm very ambitious, quite frankly. I'm ambitious that everyone in this country lives a fulfilled, prosperous, happy life. What I am sick and tired of, actually,
what about their grandchildren? That's the problem, isn't it?
Desperation for us to be this leader on this world stage. We're not a leader on a world stage. People look at us and think we're an absolute embarrassment.
We could be.
We could not be a leader on a world stage by damaging our own economy whilst China, India, Saudi Arabia, whoever else does whatever else it wants, continues, because they're not daft. They are boosting their own economies. They are getting ready for things like AI and all of the stuff and the technology that needs. They've got their own steel. They've got their own stuff going on. They must be laughing their heads off at what we're doing to ourselves in order to make minuscule changes. Anyway, I'll get off my high horse. What do you think?
No, that's fine. But I'm sorry, Paul, I think it's pie in the sky, really. You know, even Tony Blair's think tank came out the other day and said this concept of green jobs is just not feasible. It's nonsense. Look at the car industry in this country. We've got that stick beating the car industry very hard, forcing them to sell a certain quota of electric cars, or else they have to pay huge fines under what's called the net zero mandate. But it's not working because nobody wants the electric cars because the market, you and I don't want to buy them, or most people don't. So car manufacturers are struggling and factories are having to close. It's actually going to cost jobs, not create jobs.
Look, is it a price worth paying? I guess that's the point that I'm getting at. If all of the primary emitters, or most of the primary emitters, are not on board with this and are not doing the same direction of travel in the same time frame, then is it actually counterproductive to us, even if you are someone who really wants us to move in that general direction of travel? Get in touch. Let me know your thoughts after the break. What do we do with these kind of migrant tent cities that seem to be popping up all over the place? Have you got an answer to that or not? See you in 2.
Good evening. It's time for your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. And I have some good news if you're hoping for some fine weather as we go towards the very end of meteorological winter. High pressure is building, and so the frontal system that's brought quite a bit of rain today and then showers following behind is all going to get cleared away because of the high that's coming in from the west. That being said, we do still have some showery rain around as we go through overnight across parts of, well, northern England into the Midlands, also across parts of Wales, and there could be some sleet or snow for a time over higher ground. But away from the cloudier zones, there will be some clear skies, and under the clear skies, temperatures taking a bit of a dip, touch of frost quite likely, especially across parts of Scotland. The sheltered glens could drop a few degrees below freezing. Elsewhere, most towns and cities just about holding up above freezing. But across Scotland, it's generally going to be a bright start tomorrow for many places. Those showers across some northern and western coastal parts in particular. A few showers for coastal parts of Northern Ireland too, but across the bulk of England and Wales, apart from a few showers towards the southwest, it's looking largely dry away from the far east, across parts of Lincolnshire, East Anglia, even towards Kent and London. A bit cloudier here and some blustery showers around coastal parts, but a lot of this will ease away as we go through into the afternoon. Otherwise, there will still be a few showers towards the northwest, but not that many, and actually a good deal of bright sunny spells to be had, a bit sunnier than today for many of us, though temperatures not rising that high, highs around 8 or 9 in the north and 9 or 10 further south. After a cold, frosty night for many overnight into Friday, Friday's actually looking like another largely fine day. Even more sunshine on offer and dry for most of us, though towards the far northwest. There is going to be a bit of cloud building in later, and that's because there's a front arriving, and that's going to bring some wet weather to northern parts as we go into the weekend, but staying dry and fine towards the south. Bye-bye.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7. Suzanne Evans and Paul Richards alongside me. One of my viewers has got in touch. You made me laugh because you've just said the only thing that's going to reach net zero, Michelle, is our bank accounts. Yes. If we continue in this direction of travel, there's not a lot of love, I've got to say, for some of the suggestions that have been coming through on our quest to try and achieve net zero. Keep your thoughts coming in. Look, I don't know where you live, but have you had recently like pop-ups, like a surge in tent cities, I guess you would actually call them? Take a look at this scene in Manchester. If you're from that area, I've got to say these scenes do seem to be replicated quite across the country and beyond, because what you're seeing now is tents. There's loads of them. We're not just one or two, hence I'm calling them tent cities, that seem to be filled, often predominantly with migrants. And there's a whole row about what you do about these tent cities. Well, Manchester City Council, they've actually got the eviction order. So very early this morning, they actually took down these tents, got rid of them, gave people the opportunity to take your belongings. And those that didn't, they actually essentially binned those tents. There was lots of protesters, lots of people very angry and upset about this. The council basically said that people there had been offered help. A couple of days ago, we've got a roundabout that I regularly pass in London as well, and we've been speaking to some of the people that live on that roundabout in the tents and asking, who are you, you know, what you're doing here, who you know, which countries are you from, and so on. And what they've told us is that they're asylum seekers that have had their appeals, etc., rejected, so their claims rejected. And this is that roundabout. I think I took this video yesterday, I think it was. I mean, Paul Richards, what do we do about this?
Well, the council there in Manchester, and I know also here at the Westminster Council as well, with the tent city that appeared at the top of Park Lane, they go in and they dismantle it, because what you can't have it is becoming a sort of semi-permanent structure. You may remember the sort of the cardboard cities of the 80s, yeah. You know, outside railway stations and all of that, and they became, you know, almost permanent dwellings, and you just can't allow that to happen. I was reading an interesting history about Victorian London. Of course, there was a tent city in Trafalgar Square for month after month after month. People were weeing in the fountains, and all these people had come into London looking for work, couldn't find work. So it's not a new phenomenon, but it is something you can't just put up with. You have to deal with it and get them displaced.
Because a lot of people, you had a lot of protesters in Manchester that were very angry, saying that this was inhumane and that they shouldn't do this. And I've got to say, the people in Manchester, no sooner had they torn down that tent city, those people just popped up again, just a little bit further along in a different part. So it didn't really seem to have made that much difference.
Well, I mean, my solution would be, A, process the ones that are supposed to be here quickly, the ones who are not, send them back whence they came, but most of all, let people who are here able to work. So they're not hanging around in tents or committing crimes or anything else. They're actually contributing to the economy. A lot of them do actually want to work. Some of them have skills, and we should put them to work in our economy. And there's lots of jobs that people born here don't want to do, so get them doing some of those jobs as well.
I was agreeing with you, Paul, until you got to that last
point. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You can't. I'm afraid that there are so many pull factors about coming to the UK, and this is the problem. You go to most other countries around the world, you basically have your asylum claim processed, and you either stay or you go. It's that simple. If you come here, if you come to most countries around the world illegally, you go. Come to Britain illegally, you get taken to a five-star hotel.
They're not five-star hotels.
Well, they're still nice
grim
hotels. Actually, that's not true. I've been in some of them, and they are not grim hotels. We had one in my hometown that was actually one of the nicest and finest hotels in the town.
Well, I live in Eastbourne, and there's quite a few that are not five-star hotels.
Some of them are lovely. That one certainly was. And they get benefits, and if you let them work as well, that's just another pull factor, so they can get their benefits and get cash-in-hand jobs as well.
They should be cleaning up canals and picking up litter and getting rid of graffiti and all kinds of jobs that could be done.
Well, there are also
filling in potholes. I mean,
there
there's
are
things that they should be doing.
people actually in this country who are desperate for a job who could be doing that as well. And
but
so
why are there
also
so many vacancies
taking away a job from somebody else? And as you and I both know, the number of job vacancies is slipping as the economy under this government radically goes downhill very
quickly. But there are plenty of jobs they could be doing.
It is slipping downhill radically. Vacancies are plummeting. So there's only one answer to this, and that's to A, stop illegal migrants coming here, and B, if they do manage to get here, get them on the next plane out. It's that simple.
Do you agree? Well, it sounds simple, but obviously it can't be that simple, or else surely it would be happening, wouldn't it? But we had a guest in here from Australia, and she was saying it all stems down to political will. She was talking about Operation Sovereign Body. You've got to have that political will. Before we go, another story that caught my eye as well is lots of people, because we've had this kind of spate of people choosing for whatever reason to go out and burn Korans in the streets, which I don't agree with. I don't think you should do that to any religious text. But what you've had some people saying, well, hang on, because you have also people going out and burning the Union flag in the streets, and that seems to be permissible. They're saying that actually maybe it should be illegal to burn the British flag. What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of think I'm generally not the sort of person that's in favour of banning things. And I too agree, burning the Quran is a really stupid, crass thing to do.
It's very offensive. If you're a Muslim, it's very offensive.
It's offensive to, I mean, whether you're a religious person or not, or believe in religious texts or not, I think don't desecrate something that somebody else feels very strongly about. But in terms of the Union flag, I'd take the same argument there. It is our national flag. I don't think you should be allowed to burn it.
Should it be illegal to burn it?
No, I don't think it should. I'd go a little bit further, actually. I don't think we should be having any flags flown on public buildings apart from the Union flag. I'm sick to death of seeing town halls, organisations flying the Pride flag, the Palestinian flag, the Ukrainian flag, whatever it might be. I think there's only one flag that should be flown on public buildings in this country, and that's the Union flag.
Yeah.
Or the England, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Wales flag.
Well, not really. I was in Westminster today, and I quite like to see the Ukrainian flag flying above government buildings. It's a reminder of our solidarity with those people. Should we ban burning the Union flag? I think it would actually just encourage the idiots that want to do it even more, and they'll probably see more of it as a result, because they want to get martyred and, arrested and all the rest of it. They're idiots doing it.
So I get your point that actually, if you're going into Westminster or whatever, it reminds you of Ukraine. But I would argue that if you need a flag on Westminster to remind you of the situation in Ukraine, I think that's a bit odd. And why would you then choose just that flag? There's conflicts all over the world.
Exactly.
So where do you draw the line then? Why do you just want the Ukraine one up there?
Because that is the most important conflict that will threaten our security going on right now. I mean, of course, the world is a terrible, dangerous place, but it's a good symbol of our solidarity with those people, I think.
Do you think pride flags should be flown on public buildings?
On the relevant week and not permanently, but yeah, again, just a bit of solidarity with people. I think there's no harm in these things.
Why do you need to fly a flag focusing on people's sexual preferences or lifestyle choice or whatever? Why does that need to be flown on public buildings?
Because the people running those public buildings want to show that view, I suppose.
Yeah, but they're not the people...
Exactly. All right, then. So let's just explore that before I go. I've got about 10 seconds. If someone in a public building does not believe in gender ideology, does not believe that men can become women, can they create a flag, and can you fly that one on a public building?
There's no flag for that, as far as I know.
But if someone creates a flag, would you be comfortable with that?
A pride flag is just a rainbow flag.
That's my point. If somebody creates a flag then that says, actually, I do not believe in... I believe in biological sex and the realities of that, would you be happy with that flag?
If that was the policy of the government or the council that ran that building, then why not? But it isn't, is it?
Let's not get into these controversies. Let's just have the Union Union flag and that's it. It's simple.
Well, there are people that don't even
Very
accept
simple.
that flag, do they? You know.
Well, but this is the country. You know, this is the country that we live in, so that's our flag. And if you start burning that, frankly, it shows you don't like this country, and I think serious questions need to be asked about why.
Well, there you go. What flags should be flown, if any? Because some of you might even say there should be no flags flown at all. Don't even get me started on zebra crossings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm in a bad mood tonight. You could probably tell if you've watched the whole show. So don't even get me started on things like rainbow, zebra crossings, pedestrian crossings. Goodness gracious me, honestly, this world is going mad. That's all we've got time for, ladies and gents. Have a good evening. Thanks, panel. Thank you at home for your company. I'll see you tomorrow night.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. It's time for your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. And I have some good news if you're hoping for some fine weather as we go towards the very end of meteorological winter. High pressure is building, and so the frontal system that's brought quite a bit of rain today and then showers following behind is all going to get cleared away because of the high that's coming in from the west. That being said, we do still have some showery rain around as we go through overnight across parts of, northern England into the Midlands, also across parts of Wales, and there could be some sleet or snow for a time over higher ground. But away from the cloudier zones, there will be some clear skies, and under the clear skies, temperatures taking a bit of a dip, touch of frost quite likely, especially across parts of Scotland. The sheltered glens could drop a few degrees below freezing. Elsewhere, most towns and cities just about holding up above freezing. But across Scotland, it's generally going to be a bright start tomorrow for many places, those showers across some northern and western coastal parts in particular. A few showers for coastal parts of Northern Ireland too, but across the bulk of England and Wales, apart from a few showers towards the southwest, it's looking largely dry away from the far east, across parts of Lincolnshire, East Anglia, even towards Kent and London. A bit cloudier here and some blustery showers around coastal parts, but a lot of this will ease away as we go through into the afternoon. Otherwise, there will still be a few showers towards the northwest, but not that many, and actually a good deal of bright sunny spells to be had, a bit sunnier than today for many of us, though temperatures not rising that high, highs around 8 or 9 in the north and 9 or 10 further south. After a cold, frosty night for many overnight into Friday, Friday's actually looking like another largely fine day. Even more sunshine on offer and dry for most of us, though towards the far northwest. There is going to be a bit of cloud building in later, and that's because there's a front arriving, and that's going to bring some wet weather to northern parts as we go into the